Now that we've got all the bolts in, we're going to take the rail and we're going to slide it on the extrusion. Now you may need to kind of get down here and make sure that the T-nuts are square to the T-slots, or the carriage nuts are square to the T-slots here for them to slide on. But we're going to get this completely slid on here. And we're going to align this with the end of the rail. After you align it with the end of the extrusion here, we're going to tighten all the bolts with a 1/2 inch wrench. I highly recommend a ratcheting wrench or a socket here, as this will make the task go a whole lot faster. And we're just going to tighten all of these down. Now that we've gotten those all tightened down, the next step here is to attach the lead screw and the nut together. So both ends of the lead screw are precision ground here, and you're just going to take your 11-inch lead screw and you're going to take your 5-start nut if it's a 5-start Z-axis that you ordered with your kit. If it's a single start, then you're going to want to take the single start nut. And we're just going to thread it onto the axes here. And you're going to want it to thread it down into the middle here. It should thread on very easily. If you're having trouble on one end, you can flip it around and try on the other. After we get it threaded on, we're going to take our Z-axis plate here, and we're going to attach the nut to the Z-axis plate. And we're going to use the 2 threaded holes here in the middle. And what you're going to need to attach it is 2 5/16-3/4 inch socket head cap screws. And so we're just going to put them down on here, and we're going to finger tighten them. And then you're going to want to use Loctite for these nuts again. And finish tightening them with a socket. And then we're ready to insert the Z-axis onto the rail. Before we can insert the Z-axis onto the rail, we need to attach the carriages to the rail and get them all assembled. So please refer to the carriage assembly and adjustment video on how to do this. I've already pre-assembled my carriages here, so we're just going to slide them back on the rail and make sure that they're sitting tight and flush up against the rail here. Alright. And after you do that, you can move them to the center of the rail. Next, we're going to take our Z-axis plate, and the side that has the 4 mounting holes here on the bottom, you want facing away from the bearing mount. And so we're going to take that, and we're just going to face it away, and we're going to rest the Z-axis on top of the carriages, and we're just going to slide the lead screw here into the bearing block. And you can slide it until it's seated all the way. After that, we're ready to tighten the Z-axis to the carriages. So your carriages are flush against the rails now, and what we're going to do is we're going to take 4 3/8 inch by 1.5 inch socket head cap screws, and we're going to insert them into the slots in the Z-axis plate. So your Z-axis plate has these 4 slots, and you should move these carriages here until you see the slots, until you see the threaded holes from the carriages in the Z-axis plate. And after you see the threaded holes, you can thread the screws in to the socket. Now you're going to have to use a 5/16 inch Allen wrench to adjust these screws, and you want to put Loctite on these screws before adjusting. Another thing that I forgot to mention is that when you're putting the carriages on, the side with the set screw needs to go down. If you put the side with the set screw up, the carriages aren't going to be at the proper height, and the lead screw is going to be impossible to insert into this bearing block. So I'm going to tighten all these up, and you can pause the video and unpause it when we're done. After you're done tightening down the screws that hold the carriages to the Z-axis plate, the next thing we need to do is position the screw and tighten it down to the bearing. So make sure the screw here is fully seated on the shaft coupler here, and we're going to want to make sure that the shaft coupler is about a 1/16 to an 1/8 of an inch off of the rail here. And after you've done that, we're going to take a 9/64 inch Allen wrench, very odd size, and we're going to tighten these two screws here on the coupler down. Again, you're going to want to use Loctite for these screws because they're in a high vibration area. And so after we tighten this down, we're ready to tighten the entire assembly down. So we're going to take our 1/2 inch wrench, our socket, and we're just going to tighten these down. Now your Z-axis should be mostly assembled. How we're going to check the Z-axis to make sure that it's ready for use is, again, we're going to just verify here that all of the bearings are touching the corners here. If not, loosen these top screws up, reset the bearings, and tighten these screws back down. How we're going to check is we're just going to turn the screw by the shaft collar here, and it should turn easily. You shouldn't have to force this. If you have to force this, something's binding in the system. Loosen everything up and retighten everything again until you can turn it easily by hand. And that's the Z-axis assembly video. If you have any questions, you can email me directly at nate@finelineautomation.com, and we'll do our best to answer and get back to you as quick as possible. Thank you.